Welcome to the channel Liturgy of Slaves, March 1944 in Alkaloo, South Carolina. A 14-year-old boy stands alone in a police station. His name is George Stinney Jr. He weighs 90 pounds. The handcuffs slide loose on his thin wrists. He asks for his mother, but no one calls her. He asks for water, and they bring a glass, but their eyes tell him he is already guilty. Outside, a crowd is forming. Inside, men in uniforms decide his fate before any trial begins. 2 white girls have been found dead in a ditch near the railroad tracks. Someone saw George talking to them earlier that day. That is enough. In 1944, South Carolina, for a black child, that is more than enough. George is a shy boy. He picks flowers for his sisters. He helps his father carry lumber. He goes to the colored school when it is open, which is not often. His family lives in a mill town where the white families own everything and the black families own nothing. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone knows their place, but now 2 children are dead and the white community wants an answer. They want it fast, they want it simple, and George Stinney Jr., a boy who has never been in trouble, who has never raised his voice, becomes that answer. They take him from his home without his parents present. They question him for hours, no lawyer, no witness, no record of what was said. Later, the sheriff will claim George confessed, but there is no written confession, no signature, no proof. Just the word of white men against the silence of a terrified child. His family is forced to flee Alkaloo that same night. Threats arrive, rocks through windows, voices shouting in the dark. They leave George behind, not because they want to, but because they have no choice. In the Jim Crow South, a black family cannot protect their son from the system. They can only run 81 days later. George Stinney Jr. will be strapped into the electric chair. He will be so small, they have to use a Bible as a booster seat. The executioners will struggle to fit the mask over his face. And when the switch is thrown, his body will convulse so violently the mask will slip off, revealing his face to the witnesses. Before we continue this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. Stories like this must never be forgotten. Let's continue. Spring 1944. The world is at war, but in Alkaloo, South Carolina, life moves to an older rhythm. The lumber mill runs 6 days a week. White families live in painted houses with porches. Black families live in unpainted shacks near the tracks. The children play separately. The churches are separate. The water fountains are separate. This is not cruelty, the white folks say. This is just the way things are. George Stinney Jr. is the second youngest of 6 children. His father works at the mill carrying boards in the heat, his hands scarred and calloused. His mother washes clothes for white families, scrubbing until her knuckles bleed. George is small for his age, quiet, polite. He says yes, sir, and no, ma'am, without being told. He knows the rules. Stay on your side of town. Don't look white people in the eye, don't talk back, don't make trouble. These rules are not written down, but every black child in Alkaloo knows them by heart. On March 23, 1944, 2 white girls go missing. Betty June Binnicker is 11, Mary Emma Thames is 7. They leave their homes on bicycles in the afternoon looking for flowers. When night falls and they do not return, search parties form. Men carry lanterns through the woods. Mothers call their names into the darkness. The next morning, their bodies are found in a water-filled ditch near the railroad tracks. Their skulls are crushed. The town goes silent with shock, then roars with rage. Someone must pay. Someone will pay. And in a place where justice wears the face of white supremacy, the question is not who is guilty. The question is who can be made to look guilty fast enough to satisfy the mob. The sheriff arrives at the Stinney home before noon. George is sitting on the porch steps, carving a piece of wood with a pocket knife his grandfather gave him. His younger sister Aim is beside him, braiding grass into a chain. When the patrol car stops in the yard, George stands. He has done nothing wrong, but his heart pounds anyway. In Alkaloo, a police car in a black family's yard never means anything good. "Boy, come here," the sheriff says. George walks forward slowly. His father is at the mill. His mother is inside hanging laundry. She hears the voice and comes to the door, drying her hands on her apron. "What do you want with my son?" she asks, her voice steady but her eyes afraid. "Just need to ask him some questions," the sheriff says, "about those girls." George's mother steps onto the porch. "He don't know nothing about that." Then he won't mind answering a few questions. They take him right there. No warrant, no explanation. His mother follows the car on foot for half a mile before she loses sight of it on the main road. George looks back through the rear window and sees her standing in the dust, one hand raised as if she can pull him back by will alone. At the station, they put him in a room with no windows. 3 men come in and out. They ask the same questions over and over. "Did you see the girls? Did you talk to them? Where were you? What did you do?" George tells the truth. Yes, he saw them. They asked him where they could find maypop flowers, and he pointed toward the railroad tracks. That was all. He went home. He did his chores. He ate supper. He went to bed. But the truth is not enough. The men lean close. They raise their voices. One slams his hand on the table. George flinches. He is 14, but he looks 12. He has never been hit by a white man, but he has seen what happens to black men who anger them. He has seen men dragged from their homes. He has heard stories his parents tell in whispers. Stories that end with trees and ropes and bodies left as warnings. "Tell us what you did." One of them says, "I didn't do nothing." George whispers, "Don't lie to us, boy." Hours pass. George asks for his mother. They do not bring her. He asks for water. They bring it eventually, but by then his throat is too tight to swallow. He asks to go home. They laugh, not a kind laugh. A laugh that says he will never go home again. Later, the sheriff will write in his report that George confessed. He will say George described hitting the girls with a railroad spike. He will say George showed no remorse. But there is no confession in writing, no recording, no witness who is not a police officer. Just words on a page written by men who needed a confession to exist. That night, George is moved to the county jail in Columbia, 50 miles away. The sheriff says it is for his own protection, but everyone knows the truth. If they keep him in Alcaloo, the white men will take him from the jail and finish the job themselves. There have been lynchings in South Carolina, many lynchings. The system knows that if it wants George Stinney dead, it must do the killing legally, with a judge and a jury and the appearance of justice. Back in Alcaloo, George's family packs what they can carry. Neighbors come to the door after dark and tell them to leave tonight. Now, the Stinney house is too close to the white part of town. Someone has already thrown a rock through the window. Someone has already shouted threats from the road. George's father loads his children into a borrowed truck. His mother takes one last look at the house where George was born, where he learned to walk, where he carved his name into the door frame last summer. Then she climbs in, and they drive into the night, leaving their son behind because staying would mean death for all of them. George spends his first night in jail on a concrete floor. There is no blanket, there is no mattress. He curls into a ball and tries not to cry, but the tears come anyway, silent and hot. He thinks about his mother. He thinks about AIM. He wonders if they are safe. He wonders if anyone is coming to help him. He does not know that his family is gone. He does not know that no one is coming. The trial is set for April 24, 1944. 1 month. In that month, George sees no one from his family. No letters reach him. No visitors are allowed. A lawyer is appointed, but the man is young, inexperienced, and shows no interest in defending a black boy accused of killing white children. His name is Charles Plowden. He meets George once, maybe twice. He asks no questions. He calls no witnesses. He does not investigate the scene. He does not request a postponement to prepare. He simply waits for the trial date like a man waiting for a train he knows is late but will arrive eventually. In the white community, there is no doubt. George Stinney is guilty. The newspapers say so. The sheriff says so. The men in the barber shop and the women in the grocery store say so. No one asks why a 90. 8-pound boy would kill 2 girls for no reason. No one asks how he could overpower them both. No one asks where the railroad spike is, because it was never found. No one asks why there is no blood on his clothes, no scratches on his hands, no evidence of any kind except the word of men who needed someone to blame. April 24 arrives. The courthouse in Manning is packed. White faces fill every seat. George is led in wearing clothes too big for him, his wrists still lost inside the handcuffs. He looks around for his mother, but she is not there. No one from his family is there. They were not told about the trial. Or if they were told in a way that made it clear they should not come. The trial begins at 10:00 in the morning. The prosecution calls its witnesses, the doctor who examined the bodies, the man who found them, the sheriff who claims George confessed. Each one speaks with certainty. Each one looks at George as if he is not a child, but a monster. The defense calls no one. Plowden makes no objections. He asks no questions on cross-examination. He presents no alternative theory. He does nothing. At one point, George's lawyer stands and says, "The defense rests." That is all. 3 words. Asterisk, the defense rests asterisk, as if there was a defense to begin with, as if anything that happened in that courtroom was designed to find the truth. The jury is 12 white men, all of them. Farmers, shopkeepers, men who know exactly what is expected of them. They leave the courtroom to deliberate. 10 minutes later, they return. The foreman stands. The judge asks for the verdict. Guilty. The word drops like a stone into water. George does not understand at first. He looks at his lawyer, waiting for him to object, to appeal, to do something. But Plowden is already gathering his papers. The judge asks George to stand. George stands. His legs shake. "George Stinney Jr., you have been found guilty of murder. I hereby sentence you to death by electrocution." George's knees buckle. A deputy catches him by the arm and holds him upright. The courtroom is silent. No one gasps. No one protests. This is the outcome everyone expected. This is justice Jim Crow style, efficient, brutal, final. The entire trial, from jury selection to sentencing, lasts 2.5 hours. George is returned to his cell in Columbia. The death warrant is signed. The execution is scheduled for June 16, 1944. 3 days from arrest to execution. In that time, no appeals are filed. No new evidence is examined. No one from the governor's office questions whether a 14-year-old child should be put to death. The machine moves forward with cold efficiency. George does not understand what death by electrocution means. He has heard the phrase, but he cannot picture it. He knows people die, but he cannot imagine his own death. He is 14. At 14, death is something that happens to old people, to soldiers overseas, to characters in stories. Not to him, not in a room with witnesses and a leather strap and a switch on the wall. The days blur together. Morning light through a barred window. Meals pushed through a slot. The sound of other prisoners coughing, pacing, shouting at ghosts only they can see. George asks the guards if his mother has come. They say no. He asks if he can write her a letter. They bring him paper, but George can barely write. He manages a few sentences in pencil, the letters crooked and childish. Asterisk, Mama, I miss you. I didn't do nothing. Please come get me. Asterisk, he gives the letter to a guard. He does not know if it is ever mailed. In Alcaloo, the Stinney family tries to survive. They are living with relatives in another county now, sleeping on floors, sharing what little food there is. George's father cannot find work. Everyone knows his name. Everyone knows his son is the boy who killed those white girls. It does not matter that there was no real trial. It does not matter that George is a child. In the eyes of the white community, and even some in the black community, the Stinneys are tainted, dangerous, best avoided. George's mother stops eating. She grows thin and gray. At night, she lies awake and sees her son's face. She hears his voice asking for her. She prays until her knees ache, but the prayers feel hollow. God does not answer, or if he does, his answer is silence. Weeks pass. George's hair grows longer. His face grows thinner. He talks to himself sometimes, quiet conversations with people who are not there. He talks to his sister Aim. He talks to his father. He talks to the girls who died, asking them why this is happening, asking them to tell someone he did not hurt them. But the dead do not answer either. In early June, a priest comes to see him. Father McGowan is an older man with kind eyes and a soft voice. He sits outside George's cell and speaks to him through the bars. He does not ask if George is guilty. He does not lecture him about sin. He simply talks about God, about forgiveness, about heaven. George listens, but he does not understand why the priest is telling him these things. He does not understand that the priest is preparing him to die. Will it hurt? George asks one day. Father McGowan pauses. He wants to lie to comfort this child, but he cannot. I don't know, son, but it will be quick. Will I see my mommy after in heaven? Yes, you'll see her again. George nods. He wants to believe that. He needs to believe that because if heaven is not real, if there is nothing after this, then everything he has endured is for nothing. June 16, 1944. The day arrives like any other. The sun rises, birds sing. In the prison, breakfast is served. George cannot eat. His stomach is knotted with fear. Guards come to his cell mid-morning. They tell him it is time. He asks if his mother is here. They shake their heads. He asks if he can wait one more day. They do not answer. They open the cell door and lead him down a long hallway. The execution chamber is a small room with concrete walls and a single chair in the center. The chair is made of wood and metal with straps for the arms, the legs, the chest. Wires run from the chair to a machine against the wall. There are witnesses sitting in rows of wooden benches, newspaper reporters, law enforcement, citizens who wanted to watch. Their faces are blank, unreadable. No one looks at George with pity. No one looks away in shame. George is so small that when they sit him in the chair, his feet do not touch the ground. The guards look at each other, unsure what to do. One of them leaves and returns with a Bible, a thick King James version bound in black leather. They place it on the seat beneath George, boosting him up so the straps will fit properly. George sits on the Word of God as they prepare to kill him. They strap his arms down. They strap his legs. They strap his chest so tight he can barely breathe. One of the guards attaches a metal cap to his head, and George feels the cold steel against his scalp. Another guard approaches with a mask, a heavy leather hood designed to cover the face so witnesses do not have to see the condemned person's expression. But the mask is made for an adult. When they pull it over George's head, it hangs loose, too big, covering his entire face and slipping down to his chest. George is shaking now. His whole body trembles. He tries to speak, but his voice comes out as a whimper. I didn't do it. I didn't hurt nobody. No one responds. The warden gives the signal. The executioner, hidden behind a partition, throws the switch. 2,000 volts of electricity surge through George Stinney's body. His small frame convulses violently. The straps creak, the chair shudders, and because the mask is too large, it slides off his face, falling to his lap. The witnesses see everything. They see his eyes wide and terrified. They see his mouth open in a silent scream. They see a child dying in a chair built for grown men. His body too small, his crime unproven, his life snuffed out because the system decided he was expendable. The current stops. George slumps forward, held upright only by the straps. Smoke rises from the metal cap. The smell of burned flesh fills the room. A doctor approaches, checks for a pulse and nods. George Stinney Jr. is dead. He is 14 years old. He weighs 95 pounds. He is the youngest person executed in the United States in the 20th century. The witnesses file out in silence. The reporters write their stories. The newspapers print the headlines. Asterisk Negro boy executed for double murder asterisk. There is no outrage, no calls for investigation, no questions asked. In 1944 South Carolina, this is simply how things are. A black child accused by white authority does not get justice. He gets a Bible to sit on and a mask that does not fit. George's body is taken to a pauper's grave. There is no headstone, no marker. His family is not notified in time to claim him. They do not attend the burial. For years, they do not even know where he is buried. He simply disappears, erased from the world as if he never existed. But George's family remembers. His mother never recovers. She dies a broken woman, carrying the weight of her son's death until her own. His father grows old in silence, unable to speak about what happened. His siblings scatter, carrying the trauma with them, passing it down to their children like an inheritance of grief. The white community moves on. The girls are buried. The families mourn. Life returns to normal. No one speaks of George Stinney. No one wonders if they got it wrong. The case is closed. The books are balanced. Justice, they believe, has been served. But justice was never in that courtroom. Justice was never in that chair. What happened to George Stinney was not justice. It was murder, legal murder, murder wrapped in the language of law and order. Murder committed by a system that valued white lives over black lives, that saw black children not as children but as threats to be eliminated. Decades pass, the story fades, the witnesses die, the reporters die, the judge, the jury, the executioner, all die. But the truth does not die. It lingers in archives, in court records, in the memories of those who refuse to forget. In 2004, a historian named George Frierson begins researching the case. He is George Stinney's schoolmate, one of the few people still alive who remembers him as a real boy, not a headline. Frierson digs through records. He interviews elderly residents. He uncovers the glaring holes in the case. No physical evidence, no credible confession, no fair trial. He brings his findings to a lawyer named Matt Burgess, who agrees to seek exoneration. In 2014, 70 years after George's execution, a hearing is held. Witnesses testify. Experts present evidence. The state offers no defense because there is no defense to offer. On December 17, 2014, Judge Carmen Mullen vacates George Stinney's conviction. She writes that he was denied due process, that his confession, if it existed, was coerced, that his trial was a mockery of justice. She writes that George Stinney was innocent, but innocence comes too late. It always does. George is not alive to hear the judge's words. He is not alive to see his name cleared. He is not alive to go home. There is a park in South Carolina now where children play. Swings creak in the wind. Laughter echoes across the grass, and somewhere beneath that same southern sky, in an unmarked grave, George Stinney rests. He never grew up. He never fell in love. He never had children of his own. He never got to see his mother again. But his story refuses to stay buried. It rises like smoke from that terrible chair, spreading across generations, forcing people to confront what was done in the name of justice. George's case is taught in law schools now. It is cited in arguments against the death penalty. It is remembered as a warning of what happens when fear and prejudice replace evidence and truth. 70 years after his death, George Stinney's name was cleared, but clearing a name does not bring back a life. It does not undo the terror of those final moments. It does not comfort a mother who died still believing her son would come home. It simply acknowledges what should have been obvious from the beginning, that a 14-year-old boy, alone and afraid, was killed by a system that never saw him as human. They put a Bible under him so he would fit the chair. Think about that. They used the word of God to make it easier to kill a child. That image should haunt us. It should make us ask hard questions about justice, about mercy, about who we protect and who we sacrifice. George Stinney Jr. was too small for that chair. He was too young for that verdict. He was too innocent for that death. And though the state has finally admitted its mistake, George is still gone, still silent, still waiting for a justice that will never fully come. His story must never be forgotten.